Hi, I'm Thena, and I'm going to share with you the compilation of learning and the experience of observation. So, my eyes were open to the ways of my observation could be elevated, to observe without filters, with the intention to connect, recognizing what I bring to the observation, and seeing the potential rewards that it could come from an authentic observation. The multicultural education book from Gloria Butte in chapter 2 was eye opening for me in so many ways. It reminded me that early childhood is when children form their foundational beliefs and attitudes about the self and others. These beliefs and attitudes develop into beliefs and attitudes about different people and different culture. So I'm also was reminded that all students don't necessarily begin life with the equal chance to succeed in the society. And there's so much that happens to affect the development and the outcomes of children in the early years, such as infancy, and beliefs about parenting and the potential conflicts that between the home and the school culture. Some of the overt issues mentioned in the reading, such as testing and tracking, standardized testing for early childhood doesn't really tell the whole story of how a child is learning or their historical and developmental context. And then scoring high or low on the test placement is promoting a sense of actually competition, judgment, fosters exclusions, which is the opposite of what we want, like which is acceptance and inclusion. So there are covert issues and such as the teacher attitudes and expectation in the teacher-child interactions in curriculum, the relevancy and inclusion, the sensitivity to racial, cultural, and socioeconomic differences. For example, my family culture generally expect children to be quiet and compliant. So when I encountered children who were expressive or active, it clashed with my attitudes. Interpretation. Most teachers have wants to start off with great intentions and passion, right, to do their best that they can do for each child. Yet many teachers do not end up where they thought they would. Continuing the work on their bias so that they don't negatively affect the teaching becomes harder than they thought. Instead of being joyful and making connections with children, observations can become just a task to be checked off so that numbers can be reported to the funding source. Formal assessments is also, by definition, seeking a measure in particular behaviors in children. So when or the needle hasn't significantly moved, teachers are often asked why and made to feel as if they failed. So with observation and assessment, I love the distinction that I'm beginning to see between the two. The observation builds relationship and between teacher and child and suggests an element to consider when building curriculum. Assessments and highlights trends, groups of suggestions, like elements to consider when you build a program. And then I wonder too if good observation is actually bi-directional, right? To see the child and then to be seen by the child. Intention and heart. Some of the intention and heart includes our thinking, emotions, conscience, the will, affections, motivations, and memories. As I engage with all the resources that was given to us in the class, such as the readings and the videos, I realized that there are so many interesting things to learn. And life is busy, right? And in order to in order to fully digest new ideas, I needed to choose and focus on a couple of concepts. So at first, I felt the pressure to keep the balance with it and my other responsibilities as well. And then I realized that I needed to switch from taking in information to let the information transform me. Like during observation, like it's not just about gathering the data about the child, but it's a two-way encounter. It's allowing the conversation and the observation to invite me to something that I may not have no clue about. Application. The thought of attitudes and heart, and how something like some cultures have different conceptions of how the heart works. So some see it as a heart sustains life. It is where you make sense of the world. It is where you feel pain, fear, and stress. But on the flip side, the heart can experience joy and energy of physical life. And it is actually the center of the intellectual and emotional life. Sometimes the heart can also be hardened and protective. So I came across an insight about the Chinese character for listening, and it is actually composed of 5 parts. 1 represents the eyes to see, another, the mind to think, another, the ears to hear, another, the heart to feel, and finally, undivided attention to focus. And it inspires me to be someone who considers all these things to be an important part of observation. Thank you for listening.